Also ranked us highest in the nation for mortgage servicing. Call 800-QUICKEN or go to QuickenLoans.com. That's 800-QUICKEN.
Visit jdpower.com for award information. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLS ConsumerAccess.org, number 3030.
In Italy, as rescuers try to locate more people buried by an avalanche there, another tragedy has struck the country.
16 young people, mostly boys, have died in a bus crash near the northern Italian city of Verona. The teenagers were from Hungary on a school trip when the bus they were traveling in crashed into a bridge pillar and burst into flames. As medical emergency teams try to help the burned and injured, the avalanche rescue operation in central Italy continues. So far, rescuers have saved 11 people, with at least 20 more still trapped inside. Megan Williams, ABC News, Rome.
The first NASA rocket launch of 2017 went off from Florida's Space Coast without a glitch.
It was a picture-perfect launch from the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station Friday night.
And liftoff.
As the 200-foot gleaming white Atlas V rocket spewing flames and smoke raced through the central Florida sky. The rocket carrying a nearly $1 billion military satellite into orbit for the U.S. Air Force. The space-based infrared system GEO-3 satellite will provide surveillance capabilities for national security. Tony Marino, ABC News, Orlando, Florida.
Pounding rain causing flooding and rock slides in Southern California. More than 20 people escaped injury yesterday when a flood swept cabins and vehicles down a coastal canyon about 115 miles northwest of Los Angeles. This is ABC News.
ADT presents What to Consider When Considering Home Security. An ADT sign is more than a sign. It's a line in the sand. On one side, your family. On the other, an uncertain world.
For over 140 years, more people have chosen ADT to help prevent crime than anyone else. Get ADT starting at just $28.99 a month.
Tested, trusted, proven ADT.
With 36-month contract for licensing and terms and conditions, visit ADT.com.
Michelle Franz on ABC News.
From the KMET Weather Center for Beaumont and the Pass area on this Saturday morning, we have a wind advisory in effect through 10 p.m. tonight. It'll be mostly cloudy with a chance of showers this morning. Our high 50 with winds to 35 miles an hour. We'll have rain tonight with a low of 43 with winds to 30 miles an hour. We get up heavy rain on Sunday. You expect a high 51. For Redlands, there's a chance for showers this morning. We'll have a mostly cloudy day with a high 54. For Palm Springs, we have a wind advisory in effect through 10 p.m. There's a chance for morning showers with a high of 61. I'm Rod Tanner for Smart Talk 1490 KMET.
Your pharmacy is located in Beaumont at 1686th Street near Highland Springs Avenue. Senior days at your pharmacy are on the first Tuesday and Thursday of each month. During senior days, your pharmacy offers a 15% discount on regular purchases, and when you register for your pharmacy's rewards program, you receive a free 30-day supply of multivitamins. Registration is free and easy. Make your pharmacy your pharmacy. Get the personal touch. Your pharmacy in Beaumont, where you come first.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
Whether we are black or brown or white, we all bleed the same red blood of patriots. We will reinforce old alliances and form new ones and unite the civilized world against radical Islamic terrorism, which we will eradicate completely from the face of the earth.
Welcome. It's time for Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs. It is time for a brand new era. The Trump presidency has begun, and we are one day removed from the inauguration. Those were a couple of clips from the speech. There's been a lot of concern by pundits about the eradicate radical Islam completely. Well, how do you do it completely? There's always a little bit left somewhere to have to deal with. But I enjoyed it. I was actually up in the Pass area in Banning for the inauguration. The Banning Beaumont Cherry Valley Tea Party held a viewing party at the Farms House restaurant on Joshua Palmer Way. All right, they're off the Highland Springs exit, and really enjoyed watching it with the fellow Tea Party kind of folk. and bbcvtparty.com if you want to learn more about that group up in your area. This is Constitution Radio on KMET, and with me, Alex Ferguson. Alex Ferguson, we're one day into the Donald J. Trump presidency. How do you feel?
I feel like a huge weight has been lifted from my shoulders. I'm waking up from a nightmare.
Well, you know what I told KMIR Television, the NBC affiliate out there in Palm Springs. They interviewed me on Thursday, and they asked me about my feelings, and the word I used was relieved. I feel relieved, very relieved, to say the least. And it was a battle coming up towards this election and the inauguration, and it's still a battle. I mean, all kinds of protests going on in the streets. Could you imagine, Alex, if right of center folks had protested in this manner during the Obama inauguration in 2008? Could you imagine what the media response would have been?
Well, we'd be racist again. We're always racist. Doesn't matter that we elected him twice.
Yeah. Story number one on the AllStar Collision Big Stories of the Week. Never mind the Russians. It was Hillary Clinton who was actually trying to sabotage the 2016 presidential election. Have you seen the latest WikiLeaks release about her bribing 6 Republicans in an attempt to destroy Trump during the campaign?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, the evidence includes an email from John Podesta. John Podesta was really loose with his emails, we're learning, to Huma Abedin, discussing diverting Clinton campaign funds to various Republicans who were secretly on the Clinton payroll. The email, this is how it was reported. The email sent in July of this year describes how funds were being diverted from Clinton's campaign to super PACs of Jeb Bush, Carly Fiorina, and John Kasich. According to the email, Jeb Bush, Carly Fiorina, and John Kasich PACs will be noticeably silent for the rest of the campaign. Each will receive a significant allowance from advertising budget. HRC is in the loop and has talked to all 3 personally, eyes only. And this email was dated days before the House Speaker Paul Ryan withdrew the invitation of Donald Trump to speak at an event in Wisconsin. Though not a smoking gun, it seems that Ryan was in on the dirty deed as well. Another email sent at the money being moved to Republican elected officials in the House and Senate. For instance, FEC reports shows that 2 large donations from PACs and private sources in early October went to John McCain right after he publicly criticized Trump. Senator Lindsey Graham, another outspoken critic of Donald Trump and briefly candidate for president from July to December, also, it seems, received help from the Clintons. An email that simply states cleared the road for him in 2020 could mean there will be no strong or supported Democrat in the South Carolina Senate race when Graham is up for re-election. As with McCain, Graham has publicly called for a look into the alleged Russian influence in the 2016 election. Here's the thing. We have conservatives that have gone never Trump, and they were saying things like, well, there's even Republicans that are out there against, Trump. And then they start naming people like Lindsey Graham and McCain and Jeb Bush and Kasich and so on and so forth. Well, look at here. Money talks. This was a lie and a illegal and corrupt collusion from day one. And the fact that Trump survived all of that says even more about his popularity. And the polls out there saying, oh, he's the most unpopular new president in history. No, he's very popular. We know the polls are skewed. We know that stuff like this is going on. He's very popular, and it's being hidden quite well with manipulation.
Well,
what do you
these people
think?
Should never be reelected.
What was that?
I say these people should never be reelected.
These people? Oh, absolutely. And I'm trying to get the word out as much as I can. It's one of the reasons why we're talking about it on the radio program. And then on top of that, and this is the next story down the line, CNN aired a report explaining how through Obama's line of succession, which is in place until Trump was to take the oath to be president, that an Obama appointee would be the next president should Donald Trump be killed during the inauguration ceremony. Well, first of all, that's not necessarily so. If you read the 20th Amendment, if the president is killed, vice president-elect, if president-elect is killed, the vice president-elect becomes president, takes the oath. If both of them are gone and the line of succession is not in place, then Congress would choose the next president. So first of all, CNN's report was false. Didn't even follow the Constitution. It was completely outside the law. Second of all, was that not an incitement of violence and an incitement of an assassination?
It's an open invitation.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, this is something that I think CNN should be prosecuted for. But they won't be.
It's an indication of how deranged and unhinged these people have become.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, you can start going through, you know, the list, which we will in the second segment of people who are just went unhinged. But then the allies, next story number 3, the allies of Donald Trump, though, aren't being put out there in the media. They're not being talked about. You know, Martin Luther King III prayed with Trump before the election. Martin Luther King's niece, Alveda King, which has been on this program, by the way, she said she voted for Trump. She's pro-life, by the way. We got sports media Stephen Smith defending Trump and defending Steve Harvey for meeting with Trump. Steve Harvey, you know, was attacked and called a number of names for, you know, for daring to meet with Trump. We have the black college band from Talladega College down in Alabama that was under attack by their own alumni because they were going to play at the inauguration, which they did, and it was fantastic. And in fact, they couldn't even raise enough money to make the trip. They had like, I don't know, 17,000 or something like that, and they needed 75,000. They wound up raising over $600,000, partly because the president of the college appeared on O'Reilly. And after he was on O'Reilly on Fox News, the GoFundMe account went nuts, and they wound up raising plenty of money. And then you've got the vocalist, who, you know, the young lady, the 15, 16-year-old, to sing the national anthem, and what a beautiful voice. In fact, she was also under fire and being threatened. So, you know, 15-year-old, 16-year-old kid being threatened because she's going to sing, has a great opportunity to sing the national anthem in front of a national audience at a presidential inauguration, and her life is being threatened by an unhinged left who is so busy crying and throwing a temper tantrum they can't even recognize the hypocrisy of what they are doing. Your final thoughts on that?
Well, I find it ironical that the Democrats are always accusing the conservatives of not having blacks showing up at their functions. And then when the blacks do show up at their functions, at our functions, the Democrats threaten them and intimidate them and scare the hell out of them.
Call them names, call them Uncle Tom, all of that jazz. You know what? And what amazes me is it's the Democrat Party that has the racist history. It's like I quipped when Trump won the election. I hadn't seen the Democrats this angry since the Republicans released the Democrat Party's slaves back in 1865. I mean, that's really how I feel. And you look back in history and how it's been skewed and lied about. You know, it's like, have you ever seen that painting of George Washington crossing the Delaware?
Yeah.
If you look real close to that painting, the two individuals in the front of the boat are black. Now, if you were to ask a liberal leftist, a Democrat, about those two blacks on that boat, the first words out of their mouth were, well, they must be his slaves. They weren't. They were free black men who were fighting the revolution, defending the liberty of the colonies in the American Revolution, and believed in the independence of the 13 states. How come they're not reporting on things like that? How come they're not reporting favorably about someone like Ben Carson, who grew up in the hard neighborhoods, inner city neighborhoods, broke away from that, became a successful neurosurgeon, and ran for president of the United States? Why aren't we hearing the feel-good stories about that? Why aren't we hearing the stories about how Roy Innes, who just passed away a little over a week ago, took the Congress of Racial Equality, which was starting to have a bad name, and turned it around with conservative leadership. Why aren't we hearing anything about that? Because it doesn't fit the narrative. It doesn't fit the agenda. They are ideologically driven. They could care less about the truth. They care less about race. And it's like I try to explain to black Democrats, Hispanic Democrats, and homosexuals out there. They don't care about you. You're just a tool. You're just a vote. They are acting, and when I say they, I mean the Democrats are acting like they are behind your cause for your vote, and that's it. Nothing more. You're tools. Final thoughts on that?
Yeah, I just finished up this essay that I handed to you, The Sins of the Jackasses, a Bill of Particulars. And I'm now up to 22 examples where the left accuses the conservatives of the crimes that the left itself perpetrated.
Right.
It's Freudian projection is what it is. And the list, I mean, it fills 2 pages. Almost everything that America has to be ashamed of, starting with the Trail of Tears, was perpetrated by the Democrats.
Well, the problem is, too, is all this garbage that's out there about Trump and all that, and all of this history and everything you're talking about, they whitewash it. They cover it up. Their followers only believe what they're told, not what the truth is or what really happened. And so my message out there to all you never-Trumpers and all you hard-left Democrats and all you knuckleheads who think the Constitution is some type of oppressive document, are you going to believe what you've been told? Are you going to believe what you've been taught? Or are you going to believe what you personally can get out there and learn? We'll be right back after this break. We got a book to talk about.
You got a dent in your door, a scratch in your fender, or a scratch in your door and a dent in your fender. If you need auto detailing, if you need fire shooting decals on the side of your car, if you need a rally stripe right down the middle of your hardtop, I don't care what it is. The Patriots at AllStar Collision are the place you want to go. They're the only place to go. 522 Railroad Street in Corona. Web address allstarci.com to see all that they do and what they're all about. Phone number 951-279-9161. AllStar Collision, the kings of wreck and roll.
What's your constitutional IQ? Your quest to learn the Constitution can be fun for the whole family. Learn about the Constitution as you play the Constitution Quest board game. Learn more at constitutionquest.com. Help me fight the good fight. This radio program is funded by advertising dollars. So, if you are a business, add Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs to your business portfolio. If you are a listener, become a patron of the business's advertising on this program. Without advertising, your weekend dose of truth ends. With more advertising, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs grows, and we will be on the way to win the battle to restore the Republic. To learn more, email us at constitutionspeaker@yahoo.com or visit douglasvgibbs.com.
Hi, this is Ed Hoffman, host of The Main Event, president of Wholesale Capital, and the founder of WCC Charities. I'd like to invite you to the first WCC Charities Gala and Auction this February 25th at the beautiful Victoria Club in Riverside, where we'll be raising money for wounded veterans causes that so many of us are passionate about. It's going to be a magical night out for a great cause. This is a red tie event because red stands for Remembering Everyone Deployed. Visit the events page at wcccharities.org for more information or call my assistant Shelly at 855-640-2020 to order tickets. That's 855-640-2020. Hope to see you there.
Welcome back, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs, right here on KMET 1490 AM. It's a pleasure to have you with me, and I'm glad you are listening. And, if they want to call in, do me a favor, Sean, real quick. Throw that number out there in case someone wants to call in.
That's 951-922-3532. And if anybody's watching online on their phone or anything, they can see that number on their screen also.
Yeah, if you go to KMET1490am.com to listen to this program, you can actually hit KMET TV to watch me do the program. This video also gets uploaded to my YouTube account later, youtube.com/Douglas V. Gibbs. All right, we've got a book out there that kind of helps us understand what the Democrats are up to. It's called The Communist by Paul Kingor. And Alex has been going through this book, reading this book, and he's been giving us information about it. Last week we began the first series on it. And Alex, I'm going to turn this over to you. You tell us, what is the Communist saying about what's going on in America now?
Well, first, I'd like to preface it by saying that last week I revealed something that's been hidden from the American public all this time. I didn't find out about it until I was 60 years old, and that is that the Soviets trained and equipped the Wehrmacht and the Luftwaffe, the Nazi military machine. There would have been no World War II if they hadn't trained together and produced those munitions. Now, you're going to find it. I know a lot of people want to look that up on Google. If you want to do that, the way to do it is go to Hans von Seeckt. That's Hans von, and then Seeckt. He's the general that worked it out with he's the Nazi general that worked it out with the Soviets. So if you Google him, you can find that I'm not blowing smoke here. It's really true. When we talk about Barack Obama and his leftist connections, you have to remember that getting a job in the government requires that you pass a security clearance. Barack Obama, as well as many of the people in his administration, could never pass a security clearance investigation. There's just no way possible. Just to start with, you've got John Drew from Occidental College, who says that Obama argued from the position that not only did we need a Marxist revolution, we needed a violent Marxist revolution in this country. He never. Now you can say, well, a lot of people were communists when they're young. Barack Obama has never renounced his Marxist views. Every one of those other people that changed from one side to the other, they announced it. They publicized it. You know, like for instance, I'm having a brain. The guy that we interviewed.
Which one? You're not talking about David Horowitz, are you?
David Horowitz, that's the guy.
Wow.
David Horowitz.
Well, I tell you what, I know I've been hanging around you long enough when I know what you're thinking.
Well, that's cool. We support each other. But David Horowitz is a perfect example. Barack Obama has never renounced his Marxist views.
Right.
His major number one influence in his life is Frank Marshall Davis. He spent 10 years under this guy's tutelage in Hawaii. But he also had
Frank Marshall Davis is his father, for that matter. But go ahead.
Besides him, you got Jeremiah Wright, Bill Ayers, Bernardine Dorn, Van Jones, his grandfather Stanley Durham. Oh, by the way, Stanley's FBI file is missing. Okay, his grandfather. Stanley Ann Dunham is his mother. Barack Obama Sr., Saul Alinsky, Tony Rezko, Carolyn Boss. There's all these communists. I don't have all these. I'm a guy that seeks out radicals just because I want to understand them. And I don't know as many communists as he did, and he's supposed to be a normal person. Well, that's debatable.
Yeah, well, yeah, be careful how you define normal.
So this book, The Communist, follows the career of Frank Marshall Davis through Chicago and Honolulu.
Now, I want to interrupt you just for a second. Frank Marshall Davis and the communists of that time period, they wanted a violent revolution. It was Saul Alinsky and that kind of thinking that really changed it into no, we don't want a violent revolution. We want to infiltrate and do it peacefully from within. I mean, that kind of thinking was already there, but it was really the Saul Alinsky students that really took that and moved it into in as a primary tactic, right?
I couldn't have said it better myself. As a matter of fact, my first bullet here is the collapse in 1948 of Henry Wallace's Progressive Party led to the American Communists infiltrating the Democratic Party. Their idea was, just as you say, rather than having a violent revolution, they'll take over quietly. At that time, there were people like John F. Kennedy, Scoop Jackson, various Democrats who were anti-communist, extremely anti-communist. And they've been moved out, pushed out. Now we've got people like Nancy Pelosi, who are very clearly Marxist, aggressively Marxist, and they've taken over the party completely. We're dealing with a totally different kind of animal than what we used to have. The National Journal, for instance, rated Obama as the farthest left-leaning Democrat of all. Every senator in the government that was on the left was to the right of Barack Obama. Now, his mentor, this guy, Frank Marshall Davis, there's just a small mention in this book about his sexual perversion. He wrote a book called Sex Rebel under the name Bob Greene, in which he we don't know if it's memory or fantasy, but he seduces a 13-year-old girl. He sees Christianity as a device to keep the black man down. Now, of course, you have to remember that over the years, among the most solid supporters of the Communist Party are Protestant ministers. Hundreds of them would flock to front groups, despite Lenin saying, quote, "There can be nothing more abominable than religion," unquote. These people are, there's something about the mind of a minister that leaves it open. At one point, a guy on TV says, you can have an open mind to the point where your brains fall out.
Well, you know, when it comes to the ministers falling for socialism, actually it makes a lot of sense because, you know, ministers want to help the community. They want to do for people. They want to make sure the poor is taken care of. They want to have a love for their fellow man and do the things that shows that kind of love. And I don't disagree with any of those things. I think that's a wonderful thing. The socialists then come along and say, well, that's what we're for. We want to feed the poor. We want to clothe the naked. We want to give a home to the homeless. We want to, you know, help this out and that out. And, you know, common good. We want to take care of the community. Da-da-da-da-da-da. The difference is one is through government and a system that really seeks not to help but to control, and the other is done privately out of the goodness of our hearts as Christians. And the Protestant pastors that fall for socialism, they fall for the propaganda that says, oh, no, we're no different. We believe what you believe, but we just think that we need to do a little extra helping hand with government help. And people don't realize that it stops being charity and it becomes, you know, welfare. It becomes dangerous. It becomes dangerous to society as a whole.
Well, if you look at the movie The Way We Were with Barbara Streisand, in that movie, she addresses a crowd, a college crowd, and she's talking about how they should support the Soviet Union. She says, just because you take communion doesn't mean you can't support the Soviet Union. Well, at the time that happened, that she supposedly said that, the Soviets were annihilating the clergy in Russia. They killed them all. They turned the churches into warehouses, burned them down. The cathedrals were destroyed. All this stuff is going on, and there's Barbara Streisand talking about how the Soviets are open to religion.
You know, and I know they got scales over their eyes, as it says in the Bible. They can't see the truth, but it still amazes that these people fall for this. It is such a dangerous ideology, and they fall for it. And they fall for it, they embrace it, and then when it does wrong, they find excuses and justify their excuses.
Well,
it's amazing.
We're talking about the difference between the pragmatist and the ideologue.
Right.
We talked about that before. The ideologue does not look at the evidence, does not examine the results.
Right.
As a consequence, they keep banging their head into the same wall. They have this concept of politically correct, and if it's not politically correct, it doesn't exist.
Right. Well, in other words, if it doesn't fit the narrative, then it is either untrue or unusable, and only what is true in their eyes, regardless of what the truth really is, and what's usable for the narrative matters. Or it's like I've been saying for years, what's the answer to the question? And the person will respond, what question? I said, any question. Any question. The answer to the question is whatever benefits the Democrats most at the moment, even if it contradicts what they said 5 minutes ago.
Well, you got Paul Robeson is a friend of Frank Marshall Davis, and
Okay.
He and Frank Marshall Davis are touting Soviet Russia as being a society where there is no racism, and they really believe that because they were fooled when they went to visit. But Andrew Young, who is a very aggressive black, what would you call him, activist, he was ambassador to the United Nations at one point. His experience with the Russians, he says that they are the worst racists in the world. So again, reality has no effect on these people. There's a passage in the book that explains everything pretty well. It goes, his Communist Party card number, this is Frank Marshall Davis.
Right.
He was a pro-Soviet, pro-Red China card-carrying member of the Communist Party USA. His Communist Party card number was 47544. He did endless Soviet propaganda work in his newspaper columns at every juncture, agitating against and opposing U.S. attempts to slow Stalin and Mao in the late 1940s and 50s. He favored the Red Army takeover of Poland, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, Central and Eastern Europe as a whole. In China, he urged Americans to dump the fascist Chiang in support of Mao's Red forces. He wanted communist takeovers in Korea and Vietnam. He was adamantly angrily anti-NATO, anti-Marshall Plan, and Truman Doctrine. He argued that U.S. officials under President Harry Truman, whom he portrayed as a fascist, racist, and imperialist, and under Secretaries of State George Marshall and Dean Acheson, were handing West Germany back to the Nazis, while Stalin was pursuing democracy in East Germany and throughout the communist bloc. He portrayed America's leaders as aching for an excuse to launch a nuclear nightmare of mass murder and extermination against the Chinese and Soviets. Now, this is the guy that is the mentor to our recently retired president.
Recently deposed. Yeah.
He wrote for communist newspapers in Chicago and Honolulu. In the Chicago Star, Frank and his comrades mocked the claims of Winston Churchill, whom Frank detested, that an Iron Curtain had been erected by Stalin in Europe. So he couldn't have been more anti-American, more pro-communist, and yet he was referred to by Obama in his memoirs, Dreams from My Father, 22 times by name. And not only was he referred to in direct encounters with Obama, but when Obama was somewhere else, even after Frank had died, he still had him in his mind. He was still thinking of Frank's wisdom.
Right.
Just completely taken over in terms of the influence on his mind. So that's what we've been dealing with for the last
Sorry to change
years.
the subject just for a second, but you mentioned our recently removed, well, I should say deposed, retired, I guess that's a good word, President Obama. And I take it you watched the inauguration and everything that came up before it?
Yeah.
When you saw Donald Trump escorting Obama to a helicopter, Obama got in, and that helicopter's rotor started spinning, and then that thing lifted off to leave the White House grounds. What was the emotion you were feeling?
It was gratitude to the great God Almighty.
Mine was relief and elation.
Well, it's too much to bear to have to deal with that guy even 1 second longer.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was curious. Wrap up what you're talking about. We got a couple minutes before break, and then when we come back after the break, we'll have a day 0 and day 1 to talk about. But go ahead and wrap up what you have.
Well, Frank saw, just as an example of the influence, Frank saw GM as a sinister force that would be unrelenting in his anti-GM crusade for years to come. This is a direct quote. Well, as soon as he got to be president, Obama took over GM and completely changed it, put it under government control. This is the kind of thing that we see come up time and time again, that the influence of Frank Marshall Davis controls what Obama believes is right.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's what the left does, though, too. Is they're so right that even when they're acting illegally, they're right.
Well, the next segment on this will be about Harry Bridges, the union leader.
All right. No, and from there we're going to go to break, and then when we return from break, we got day 0 and day 1. In day 0, we're going to talk about the Democrats on their way out, and day 1, we're going to talk about what did Donald Trump do after he finished reciting that oath of office for him to be the 45th president of the United States. Right after this.
The true patriots of AllStar Collision have been proudly serving the Inland Empire for over 20 years. Built on honesty, integrity, quality, and old-fashioned customer service, we offer lifetime warranties for our work, and every vehicle serviced by AllStar Collision is washed, detailed, the headlights polished, fluids are checked and topped off, safety checked, and returned in showroom condition. We offer free estimates, are approved by major insurance companies, and accept all claims for all cars and trucks. We use computerized frame straightening to factory specifications, offer fiberglass body repair and paint, free local pickup and delivery, and after-hours towing. Mention this radio program at drop-off and receive $100 off or a free rental car for up to 5 days during your repair. Visit us at allstarci.com or at 522 Railroad Street in Corona. Call us at 951-279-9161. We are the kings of wreck and roll.
Hi, this is Ed Hoffman, host of The Main Event, president of Wholesale Capital, and the founder of WCC Charities. I'd like to invite you to the first WCC Charities Gala and Auction this February 25th at the beautiful Victoria Club in Riverside, where we'll be raising money for wounded veterans causes that so many of us are passionate about. It's going to be a magical night out for a great cause. This is a red tie event because red stands for Remembering Everyone Deployed. Visit the events page at wcccharities.org for more information or call my assistant Shelley at 855-640-2020 to order tickets. That's 855-640-2020. Hope to see you there.
Our records indicate that you've been lied to. Listen to the truth. Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs, Saturdays at 1 p.m. on KMET.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Our records indicate you've been lied to. Welcome to the truth. Douglas V. Gibbs.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
And now, back to our program.
Welcome back, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs, KMET, 1490 AM. Hey, Alex, did you see the images of Obama and Michelle and Hillary and well, in case of Hillary and Bill Clinton, they were getting booed and lock her up was being shouted, which I thought was funny too. And Huma Abedin, the images of these people on the way out was absolutely hilarious. You could see they are not happy.
Well, I hearken back to Obama's inauguration. He and his family, the two girls and Michelle, were all dressed in blood red and black. There was no other color in their clothing. To me, that's you talk about a dog whistle. That's a statement to the world that the radicals have taken over.
Right. And then we've got, what was it, like 53 members of the House of Representatives, the Democrats, that did not show up. One of them was the Pass area's Dr. Raul Reese. He refused. And, the attitude, well, that's not my president. And, you saw the protests and the burn. There was this one kid and had started a fire. And when asked by Fox News, his answers was twofold. Number one, because I can. That sounds like pretty much today's generation anyway. And number two, to send a expletive message to Trump. You have the fires and the fights and over 200 arrests. Democrats refusing to attend the inauguration. Thousands of women heading to protest Trump. And there was this one woman who Sean Hannity had on Fox News, who had been a part of that group. She considered herself a feminist. Her only difference from the feminists is she's pro-life. They found out she's pro-life and they threw her out. In other words, no tolerance. You are 100% in agreement with the Democrats, or you are the enemy. That's the message. And I'll be honest with you, I'm relieved. That's why I told KMIR Television when they talked to me in Palm Springs on Thursday. But on day zero, and when I call it day zero because my countdown to Obama's last day now says 0 days, 0 hours, 0 minutes, 0 seconds. And I think I'm going to leave it on my desk. I love looking at it with all the zeros on it. And the left showed how intolerant they truly are. Could you imagine? And I know all the pundits are saying this, but it deserves to be said again. Could you imagine if Republicans even acted half this much at the Obama inauguration? We would have never heard the end of it. The media would have been all over it. But
especially when they made all those speeches about how Trump should accept the will of the people and a peaceful transition and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
When it goes against them, they become entirely unhinged.
Well, it goes back to what I said earlier. What's the answer to the question? Whatever benefits the Democrats most. If it doesn't benefit them, it's the wrong answer, and they will not tolerate it. And it shows that while they accuse the Republicans the right of wanting to be tyrannical, it's really them who wants a totalitarian system and a one-party system where there is no opposition and the opposition is silenced. Absolutely incredible. So on day zero, the Democrats have continued to show us exactly who they are. And when you are going through the book, The Communist, you are talking about exactly who they are. This is not just some political disagreement. This is an ideology that desires to collapse the American system, eliminate American liberty, and replace it with a big government, socialist, one-size-fits-all totalitarian system. This is what they want. This is what they're screaming for. And what's sad about it is they've got all these snowflake college kids out there believing this crap because those kids haven't gotten to the point in their life where they can think for themselves. They're just doing what they're told. What a bunch of tools. All of you Democrats out there making a fuss, crying and whining and protesting, you're tools. You're being used and you don't even realize it.
Well, if Hillary had been elected, all of their socialist communist dreams would have come true.
Oh yeah.
And they were so close to that victory where there would be no turning back, there'd be no chance of reversal, that they could taste it. And when it was pulled away from them, they went absolutely bananas.
Well, they had convinced themselves that it was inevitable. The country, as far as they were concerned, had made a left turn, and these right-wing radicals. There was only a handful of them, just a minority of Tea Party people, and that's it. And they've been bribing, as we talked earlier in the show, bribing Republicans to help her. So what do we to worry about? Even the Republicans are on our side. We're bribing them to be our voice. Plus, they're importing, illegal aliens. It's over. And the thing is, they told us out the chute that if there ever was a candidate that could not beat Hillary, it was Trump. They wanted Trump so that they could ensure her win. And then they pearled out a bunch of manipulated poll numbers showing how far ahead she was, and then they began to believe their own lie. And as they believed their own lie and began to convince themselves that she was invincible, Trump came in and stole it from them, and he didn't just barely pull it off. In my opinion, electorally, it was a landslide, over 300 electoral votes. And they are beside themselves. They don't understand. It is absolutely incomprehensible to them. And here's the other thing and here's the thing too, is their actions, all it's been doing is confirming everything we know about them, from the violence, from the protests, from the refusal to participate, to, are you ready for this one? The closing of the Clinton Foundation. She no longer has any political power, so there's no need for it anymore. No more pay to play. So it's shut down.
Well, as much as I, at the time of the election, would have preferred somebody like Cruz to win, I've now changed my mind, especially after Trump's speech yesterday.
And the executive orders, what he did. I mean, he immediately started doing things that he said he was going to do. And, I'm sure people like our good friend Jasmius and Rosie O'Donnell was thinking, okay, he would take his hand off the Bible and say, okay, we are now a national socialist republic and I am your dictator. I mean, they were probably half expecting that. But he immediately went to work, signed an executive order limiting the extent of Obamacare to prepare for its repeal, stopping federal regulations, getting rid of an FHA mortgage plan that basically screws the middle class and gives a handout to the lower class, which is in the long run creating another housing bubble. He returned Winston Churchill's bust to the Oval Office without even a word. It just got noticed. He has immediately acted upon the things he said he would do.
Supposedly, some big newspaper guy claimed that he had removed Martin Luther King's bust from the Oval Office, and he says, wait a minute, there was a reporter standing in front of it. I never touched it. But that's how nuts they've gone. The thing that got me in the speech yesterday was that Trump defined the enemy as the establishment. That includes Republicans and Democrats. The whole swamp has to be cleared out.
Right, and so what we have is we don't have a politician, we have a businessman. And did you listen to the news? Well, his speech was so non-political, wasn't what we're used to hearing. Well, of course not. He's a businessman. I mean, it's like they keep being shocked that he's doing things differently. Isn't that the point of having that guy in there? Because we want things done differently. It's like the CNN headline about, well, he keeps appointing heads of agencies of people who hate those agencies. And my response was, yeah, exactly. That's the point. We want the change. I mean, true change, not this hope and change garbage where that leaves no change in your pocket. We're talking real change. Change in not just in how we do things, but in the culture of Washington, D.C. He's changing the culture. Did you see his list of nominees for his various agencies? There's a handful of Republicans in there that are political guys, but a large number of those people are private sector individuals. I mean, like Tillerson and so on and so forth. These are people who on the outside know how things are supposed to be run. Not just, well, this is the way it's always been done attitude that we got, and with a little bit of a leftward tinge in it. It's absolutely incredible. His speech, though, was amazing. A lot of people criticized it, didn't feel like it wasn't enough rah, rah, rah for liberty for them enough. What he spoke on was, here's what's wrong, here's what we're going to do, here's where we're going. I thought it was brilliant.
Well, his problem is, just as Rush Limbaugh said, I think yesterday, quoting a newspaper article, that there's a fourth estate in America, not the newspapers, but the bureaucracy.
Right.
And he's now going to have to face entrenched, unremovable, if I may use that word, people throughout the government who are left-wing and appointed basically for life. It's almost impossible to fire them, and they're going to do everything they can to sabotage what he has on his agenda.
Well, as a matter of fact, there's also a fifth estate. I write for it, fifthestate.com. That's one of the newest sites that I now write for, and we are there to take down that fourth estate and assist Trump in returning us to the original principles of the United States Constitution. And the Trump inauguration attracted a large crowd, despite the liberal left polls. Trump is actually, I think, a very popular president going into office, and it was classy, well put together. Melania, I knew she was an elegant and classy woman, but she was stunning, and just absolutely elegance of her was incredible. They went to 3 of the balls and danced and all that jazz, and then Trump went to work. He returned the bust of Churchill to the Oval Office. All references to climate change have been deleted from the White House website. As of noon yesterday, every mention of man-made climate change is gone from the White House website. He signed an executive order curbing Obamacare. The goal was to ease the burden of Obamacare as we transition to repeal and replace. That's what Sean Spicer said. Then he signed the paperwork commissioning James Mattis as Secretary of Defense and John Kelly as Secretary of Homeland Security. He only got 2 of his people confirmed. Obama had 7 the same day. You tell me, who's the obstructionist here? Then the FHA mortgage premium cuts. It was lending practices to low-income buyers that caused the bubble that burst at the beginning of Obama's presidency in 2008, which was the impetus of the recession in the first place. The Democrats were beginning to lead us down the same path again with their FHA mortgage premium cuts. Well, on day one, President Trump signed an executive order to stop the Damaging Act, a move that helps the middle class by stopping a new housing bubble before it even forms. Ben Carson said that the reduction was suspended indefinitely and that he would really examine the interest rate cut. Then Trump put a freeze on all new regulations. The new regulations that come out of the regulatory agencies that hadn't actually been sent to the Federal Register are frozen. All of Obama's new regulations have been frozen.
Well,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I see 2 trends. Before we end the show, I want to mention that the one trend, which is a positive one, is that these media are going out of business. They're going broke.
And he's bypassing them with Twitter. And he even asked at one of the balls, "Hey, you want me to keep on using Twitter?" Everybody's cheered. He is such a defiant president when it comes to the media. I love it.
But the second trend is very worrisome, and that is that with the new devices for self-driving automobiles, we've got millions and millions of people in this country who make their living driving. And within a couple of years, a lot of those jobs are going to go away. How are we going to employ those people? I don't know.
I believe in the American system. And as things change, Americans, I think, adjust. If given a free market ability to do it. Problem is, when government starts dictating, those jobs would be lost, and that'd be that. But there will be free market things that will rise up for these people to grab onto. There always is, because there's always people with new ideas. And I think if we keep the government out of the free enterprise system and allow our free market to adjust as necessary, it won't be a problem. Last 2 things on the list of what Trump did on day one. Trump put to paper his former nominations for cabinet members that have not yet been confirmed. A number of private businessmen and several sitting GOP legislators. And finally, Trump declares a national day of patriotism. We don't know the day yet. We don't know if it's a federal holiday or just a proclamation, but a national day of patriotism.
Well, that would be an opportunity.
Tell me, Alex, can you think of any president since Ronald Reagan that would even consider such a thing?
What I'm thinking is that the Democrats are going to be out there burning American flags.
Absolutely.
I mean, when I talk to my liberal friends, and I say something bad about America, they jump in with all kinds of other examples. But if I say something good about America, they say something bad about America again.
And that's the thing. They don't have any good to say about America. That's what leftism feeds on, is doom and gloom. But the doom and gloom is over. Donald J. Trump is president of the United States, number 45 in history, and we are done. Plug yourself.
I've got several new articles in conservativecannonade.org. Check them out. You'll find them very interesting.
And I am Douglas V. Gibbs, douglasvgibbs.com, politicalpistachio.com, working hard to bring the Constitution to all of you. Visit the websites. Continue to listen to the show. We'll see you next week. Kurt Nordahl is going to be in studio with us. Scott Sharpen of Mobile Pro-Life Services will be also on the air with us. We're going to have a great show. Looking forward to seeing you next week. Please join us right here on KMET 1490 AM. God bless America. God bless you. United we stand. Combined we kick butt. See you next week.